everyone. Welcome to the Cloud AI and the Future Tech Predictions for 2025 Nisum Tech Talk. My name is Veronica, and I'll be your host for today. We're excited to have you join us today as we discuss how artificial intelligence and cloud computing are transforming the way businesses operate. This event is a collaboration between Google Cloud and Nisum, and our goal is to share with you the most relevant industry trends and how they are being applied in real-world scenarios. During today's session, your mics will be muted, so please submit any questions in the Ask a Question widget on your dashboard, and we'll get to them in the Q&A part of today's presentation. Now, I am joined today by two experts. Our first speaker is Brad Waller, CEO and founder at Digital Dynamics and Google Cloud Digital Leader and Architect. He'll be discussing the key AI and cloud trends for 2025. And our second speaker is Sajid Mohammadi, EVP of Growth and Delivery at Nisum, and he'll be showcasing some of the real-life applications of these trends. And with that, let's get started. So passing it to you, Brad.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Coming to you from Lima, Peru, just to let you know where I am. And the technology that we have enables what we're doing today, which is actually very exciting, and things that have been happening in the world with AI bring the need for us to talk about where AI fits into the business space and what we should be doing, what we should be thinking about, how we're going to benefit from the steps that AI has taken already. If we think back to the early days of AI, and originally back in the 80s, we think of some of the predictive AI models that were done to play chess against the chess experts of the world and predict what the best-selling vehicle might be given historical value of data. Well, that's all changed. We can still do predictive AI, and it can be achieved through the models that we have. But with the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years, depending on how soon or how early you adopted some of the AI technology, the generative AI coming from the feeding and the creation of these large language models has been a very, very strong, let's call it, calling to action for the businesses today. And that calling to action is, how will we integrate? What are the things that we as a company need to do? It's not if we should, it's really how we should. So as we start going in that direction, is what are the things that we as a company need to do? It's no longer a trend, it's here. So we need to be aware of how we are going to go to the next level here. Just a second. Okay. So, hold on. Why isn't it the page advancing? There we go. Okay. So, couple of statistics here. The adoption, AI adoption in this year is supposed to increase 30%, maybe more. By 2026, we're starting to see kind of a global interaction of AI and the things that we need to be aware of. So let me just talk a bit about some of the terms and the technology that we need to be aware of, because these are the things that I'd like to make sure everybody understands in the technology. So there's some buzzwords that we need to be aware of. And clearly, if you're an AI adopter and have been part of the 2023 technology field of the ChatGPTs coming out and saying, hey, here's our tool, start to use it, and all of the other organizations that have come out with their tools and the different types of tools that we have out there, that's been really exciting. And we not necessarily have known exactly how to leverage the result of what the tools are going to offer for us and over the last year, from 2023 to 2024, we started to see the tools coming and producing really valuable output. And that valuable output not necessarily is redesign my whole organization and make this product or service be driven by AI. No, but it is a wave that we need to understand is where can we implement the content from AI. Now it's going to become very data centric to our data, not necessarily just to the large language model data. So if we look at the picture of the AI models that we have had and we've seen over the last 3 years, plus or minus, we're taking a look at some terms. The first one is large language models, and people abbreviate that by saying an LLM. Well, what is a large language model? It is this massive amount of data that got fed into a algorithmic environment that can take the data and crunch it and crunch it and crunch it and turn the data into a mathematical understanding of natural language, words, documents, paragraphs, and all of the things that we do as humans, and use the terminology, the technology, and try to understand how we speak and how we build content. And so what the LLMs have done is exactly that. They've taken massive amounts of data, all of the published works of literature, all of the mathematicals, all the encyclopedias, everything, and put it into these models. Take those models now, and at first we saw that some of the models were only good up to, say, data provided to me up to 2016. Okay, and so we said, okay, any question that I ask this model, it's going to come back and give me data that's valid up through that year. So now the data organizations have said, okay, we're going to update them and update them and update them. And companies like Google will update them about every 4 months because it takes quite a bit to train and add the extra data into the models. So Google will say, let's augment or let's add to our existing data the next 4 months of data in the environment. So still today, if we were to ask Google's LLM, what was the results of the Super Bowl, right? They would expect that we're asking about the last one that they have on file. Well, the last one they have on file from February, well, it's not on file yet. So the true value coming from the LLM would go back and look at the previous year's Super Bowl. Now, here's where we're going to start to see some other things come in. So the LLM is purely a model of let me ask the information and let me expect to get data back from the LLM based on the algorithmic understanding of the prompt and the response. So there's another term that I just brought into that, the prompt. I'm going to start to need to understand prompt engineering. What are the things that I want to do with regards to how to build the prompt? Okay, the more clarity I can propose to the question, the better and refined data I'm going to get from the answer. So there's a prompt engineering that's going to happen. So now the tools that we see went from a single mode tool to what we call a multimodal tool. So if you think of a tool like Gemini, which is Google's front-end tool available to the consumers, they will say, hey, I'd like to know about something or build me a phrase in Shakespearean English that describes my pet dog, Fido. And it will do that. It'll build a phrase based on the information. But then I say, and draw me a picture of my pet dog, Fido, that's fluffy white with big long ears. Early days, they said, couldn't do that. I don't have a mode to build graphics. So these organizations, Google and Microsoft and ChatGPT and everybody said, okay, let me bring more tools into my consumer-based front end. Okay, and those are the things that we're going to be looking at. And let me do this now. There we go. In understanding these trends of what's happening today in the AI space, okay? So the first trend is multimodal AI, right? Where I can not only say, draw or create this phrase, but draw me the picture as well. So I've got graphical, I may even have elements in my tools that can produce a small video. I might have elements in my tools that can do mathematics, because by default, I'm not going to ask a large language model to do math for me, right? What's the square root of 144? It's not going to be able to do that. It doesn't know math. So we're going to come to a point where saying, if I want a mathematical tool, I'll have to add that in there. So multimodal tools is one of the trends that we're seeing coming out of the environment, making the responses richer. Okay, so there's one trend that I'd like to see. The next tool, or the next trend that we're going to start to see, is what we call agents or agent-driven responses. Now, agents are tools that can be augmented into the large language model that can help create responses. So they stand on their own to augment what the response coming from the large language model is and say, oh, I've got more clarity to that. I've got better information than what the large language model is, and come back from the large language model, or it may not have any information. Look at the agents, they say, oh, let me go and do that. Now, agents data, which is my own data, which is where the huge power comes in AI, right? If I can produce valuable data coming from the historic environment of my organization, kind of, hey, let's take the data warehouse that I have built over the last 20 years and bring that data into my environment and build an agent saying, oh, let me go and find this data. And I could even train a model on my own data and build and do some data work there. Now, how do we train a model? Well, Google's got a number of tools where I can do machine learning and model training and so on and so forth quite easy. And then if I wanted to build an agent and say, oh, go look at this data and use this data as part of an agent. So we've got things like an agent builder that Google can do for us and manage those kinds of things. So we're going to look at agents, which are kind of standalone tools. Now, another term that we're going to see here, some people call agents tools, some people call tools agents. I've seen it kind of go back and forth and understand that. Another term that we're going to see is what they call RAG. Okay, and what RAG is what they call retrieval augmented generation. So when we ask for something to come back and says, we're going to take the content that's coming back from the answer from the LLM, and we're going to improve on it based on, could be agents, could be other data that we're going to be able to do, and Google calls that grounding. And we're going to talk a little bit more about grounding as we go through and understanding how the process of looking in other places for that data can improve and get to where we want to be. Okay, so we're going to talk about grounding, RAG, agents, and so on and so forth. And finally, how does this all fit together to improve my organization and the customer experience, the user experience, the overall integrated piece? And I think we've all been privy to really poor relationships with what we used to call IVRs, where that automated phone answering person, if you want to speak to sales, +1, to where today we can interact with this seamless robot, call it the AI agent, to produce for us. So let's go through and look at some of these elements. And we've talked a little bit about the multimodal part, right? The multimodal part giving us a very extended picture of what the results that we're looking for. So when I say, hey, I'd like to get, from a business perspective, right, writing a little paragraph about my dog is cute, and that's fun for a certain group of people, but from a business is, I'd like to get the best trends of the sales information from a particular product and draw me a graph integrating the same information from other organizations and how my company has produced and sold that product against other companies. So a multimodal tool could do several things. Number one, take the prompt, look at the data that I have. So it's going to say, hey, I've got to look at your data, number one. So let's look at our data. So we go internal with an agent or a environment that I can look at my own data, and then go to the large language model and see if any other people have published their data and say, hey, how did our sales compare to other people's sales in the same industry? Okay, and present graphs and do a little graph that could be a nice picture that I can put into PowerPoint slide, or maybe even present the table that I'm looking for or the chart that I'm looking for to use as data coming from that. So multimodal is very, very powerful as part of one of the things that we're going to be seeing here. Okay, let me push that, go ahead. Statistics, come on, there we go. Okay, there we go. So some statistics that we're going to see from multimodal, $2.4 billion industry in 2025, growing to close to 100 billion 13 years from now, 15 or 12 years from now. Quite a massive jump. So this is one of the next revolutionary things that's happening in technology. We've come through, right, the .com revolution and the virtualization revolution and hitting the cloud revolution, and this is an augmented part of the cloud revolution. Okay, so things to be aware of there. Okay, benefits of multimodal, right? Greater grounding. What does grounding mean? In Google, when they say ground the example, so if I go into Vertex AI and say, I need to find the results of the Super Bowl, and I don't click the grounding button, it's going to say, hey, the last Super Bowl that I have results for is 2024's Super Bowl. And they'll give you the results to that one. If you click the grounding button, they're going to say, I believe you're asking for the 2025 Super Bowl. But let me just in case give you the 2024 Super Bowl information along with it. So maybe you were really looking for the previous one. So they're making better decisions for us, enhanced decision making to give us better decisions on the prompt engineering that we're looking for. Okay, so let's take a look at the next piece, agents. And I've started to talk about agents, and I'll kind of bring this into the picture. Agents are a standalone element that's going to allow us to improve the decision power of the data or the query that we're producing in my prompt, and say, the LLM says this, oh, the agent says this other thing. And the agent may say, I've got a better solution for the data that you have requested. Or my solution or my information is exactly along the lines of the data that was requested. So the LLM may actually come back and say, I don't know how to provide that data, especially when they're asking, hey, present me results on my own data. Well, it goes to the LLM and says, I've got to switch to somewhere else. So the agents are going to be looking in other places. Now, some agents are going to be looking at my own data. Some agents are going to be looking at other LLMs or a very specific vertical set of data that could augment the value that I'm looking for. So the agents are going to be very helpful in that process. We're going to start to see this right now. In the last 6 to 8 months, we're starting to see companies building agents, right? Building agents to do vertical value for the organization or their own value, bringing their data into the picture, along with the LLM response that's going to give me the global data over whatever the LLM that we're looking at, and looking at the next year where companies are saying, we're going to plan to integrate agents. 82% of the organizations are saying, I'm going to do that, okay? They're going to start to see a major jump in the way they're using AI based on the agent integration here. Okay, so let's look at a couple of other trends, right? So we're seeing agents for customer. How do we deal with agents? Now, some of these agents are going to be tied into tools like bots, right? Natural language interaction on the phone. I'd like to be able to do this, or please get me to a place where you can solve this question for me, blah, blah, blah. Agents that are dealing with human resource things, creative agents that are going to help me draw pictures or build logos or things of that nature, right? Data agents and coding agents. Coding agents are huge. Write me the Python segment to build this thing, right? Build the set of commands to create a compute engine resource in Google Cloud and make it have this operating system, right? Agents that are doing that. Now, those are already there for us because Google said, hey, I'm going to have these things ready. I've got a lot of AI already built for you. So from the cases of Google's perspective, they've been working on this for 10 years. And their Vertex AI platform has a really kind of no code or very low code agent builder that I can start to bring pieces together and even tie it into a phone number in a matter of minutes and build a tool that allows me to go and find everything about Google products that I could want to purchase, right? And build a customer response environment to get to all the Google products that I might want to purchase. Security agents. And we're going to think about security as a kind of a challenge, but an important step that we need to take in the process of getting to where we want to go. So agents are going to be very, very important. Now let's tie this into the overall picture of what we're looking to do. We're looking to create that seamless interface for our customer, okay? And that experience that if they're calling us to find out information about, changing a flight or doing something in that nature, that it's not, hey, I'm tired of this, go back and forth, bounce back and forth. I'd really like some valuable answers. And that's where we're trying to get to with the natural language customer experience. So this is where the value of my environment is starting to bring on the fact that I can get information about, oh, my flight's been canceled. Here's all of the possible flights that you could take. This is the changes that it's going to make in your schedule. And what's that going to mean to me as the consumer because my flight was canceled? And I can do that. And maybe the final step is they pass me on to the actual live human that says, aha, Mr. Waller, which one would you like? Oh, I think I'm going to change it to the flight through Chicago, and that's leaving at 7:30 this evening. So when we look at these pieces, that customer experience, bringing the agents, bringing the pieces together is really making it look like there's really a person on the other end of the phone, and it's a valuable piece that we're going towards. So with that said, some of the final steps here, common challenges, okay? Customer experience challenges, dealing with an ongoing desire to work in the AI model and dealing with that back and forth piece. How can we as a company provide that customer experience that's going to understand customer sentiment, understand the personalization that I'm trying to reach, okay? Because those are the pieces that are going to make the difference between proper customer support and the regular standard support that we've been seeing over the last 20 years. And this becomes a huge problem. It's one of the biggest challenges that we've seen over the years of outsourcing and automating and doing all of the support issues is really, really important. How is AI going to do that? Understanding my individual needs, where I can give it prompts, whether they be auditive, where I can speak to a phone prompt, or whether I'm going to type it into my phone or whatever have you. But those prompts are going to actually build responses based on my needs, not the general, most favored Q&As and those kinds of things. Great. So that's where we hope to be getting with the AI in this coming year. So I apologize for taking a little bit more time than I should have, but Sajid, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Brad. I thought that was excellent. I'm happy you took some extra time to go through some of these concepts. A lot of these terms get thrown around a lot in the market, and I really like how you kind of took them and made them tangible and relatable. So I appreciate it. So building on what Brad has been discussing, I'd like to speak a little bit about how at Nisum we're bringing these concepts to life. So specifically in regards to the three big trends that he touched on, right? Number one is multimodal AI. The second is agentic AI. And the third is AI-powered customer experiences. So Nisum is really focused on a few industries. And so retail is a big one for us, e-commerce, banking, fintech, high tech, as well as real estate and other areas where B2B2C interactions also happen. So everything from B2C to B2B2C. So given that, we are pretty close to all three of these trends in different ways. So looking first at multimodal AI. So when you're thinking about automation, transformations for large cloud initiatives, intelligent decision-making, all of these areas, there is a large component of bringing together very different types of data, disparate data sets, but also different forms of data. And that's where multimodal AI plays a large part, right? So at a very elementary level, the fact that you can describe a picture to ChatGPT and it will produce a picture is an example. Well, it's not elementary, what's going on behind the scenes, but it is an example of what multimodal AI can look like. So from an example standpoint, and I'll go through these relatively quick because I know we are coming up against time. One of the things we've been working a lot on are AI-powered search, personalization, and recommendation engines. So leveraging various different types of data inputs, be it text, images, user behavior, ratings, rankings, and being able to offer up really personalized shopping experiences based on that. A sub of this kind of concept is what we called next best action, so NBA. So that idea essentially helps a company guide their consumer or their stakeholder through different sets of actions, and based on where they are in that user journey, that customer journey, will offer up or nudge concepts to or guide posts to the user so that they take the action that's going to be the most beneficial, given the types of actions that user has taken up till that point, and based on what they've been doing, mapping that to broader data sets. So that's kind of a big area in terms of how we're looking at multimodal AI. Another in terms of agentic AI. So as Brad was touching on, agentic AI is big already and is going to be massive in the coming years. I think we have all heard the term, and there's a lot of hype and excitement around the concept of agents that can supervise their own actions, can make downstream multiple decisions, have the ability to pivot and really work through complex solutions in different ways. So along those lines, especially looking at it from a technology standpoint, there's a few different use cases that we've seen a lot of traction in the last couple of years. One is AI-driven code migration. So being able to migrate and modernize infrastructure projects, cloud infrastructure projects, in a way that the AI agent is itself making decisions and is making pivots as it's going through the process. And then, of course, there's a human in the loop to make sure that is being done in a way that is not creating hallucinations or problems in the final version of the code. Another big area is AI-powered test automation. So in this case, we're able to accelerate development cycles. We can improve the quality of the software. Obviously, that minimizes costs. So similar concept, taking a technology view into how agents can play a role. And the third is cloud data optimization. So in this case, looking at analytics to transform data into the insights, right? So going back to the prior example about personalization or recommendations, having the ability to do that in a really robust way. On the last trend that we were discussing, so how customer experience is going to be impacted by AI. So again, being at the forefront of retail and being at the forefront of B2C experiences in particular, this is kind of brings everything together. So multimodal, agentic AI, kind of bringing all of these together in the most dynamic ways possible so that the customer experience is really frictionless and is very kind of at a new level compared to what consumers have been accustomed to, and importantly, really seamless across a lot of different channels, right? In store and online and so forth. So the next iteration, the next generation really of omni-channel commerce. So on that front, we have solutions around personalization, as I mentioned, in particular for e-commerce applications that have gained a lot of traction and a lot of relevance in the industry. With that, I know we are really tight on time, so I will keep it pretty brief. But in terms of Nisum as an organization, as I mentioned, we have been working in this space for a long time. Literally, it's 25 years of expertise that we bring to the table. We work primarily with large enterprises in the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 level, and been working with these companies because we have strong strategic partnerships with them, long tenure of creating value for them. And of course, today, really focused on AI and how we can drive measurable business impact and how we can create value in ways that are really outsized compared to what the prior generation of transformations look like. Finally, we're a global organization, and we have a team of about 2,000 people that are spread out across 12 countries and 11 offices. So really able to deliver on any sort of scale of project, but in a way that's very white glove and working closely with our clients. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Veronica.
All right. Thank you, Brad and Sajid, for sharing these insights today. We'll get into the Q&A session now. Well, please continue submitting questions, and if we don't get to all of them now, we will follow up with you after the event. So first question here, what advice would you give to companies that are just starting their AI adoption journey? Sajid, do you want to take that one?
Make sure I'm off mute. Yeah, thank you. Great question. Obviously, there is quite a bit to look at when you are just starting your AI adoption journey, or if you're in the initial stages of it. I think number one, start with the use case and what business value it's creating. Don't adopt AI or any technology for that matter because, for the sake of it. That being said, there are important considerations around security, how it will impact your current environment and systems. Also, in terms of data integrity, data readiness, it's really important to do an audit of how you are going to be leveraging your internal data as well as external data in a way that's going to be the most productive. So if it's really an early on exploratory type initiative, my suggestion is to carve out a pretty small scope and work through that. So that's how I would look at it for a kind of early stage kind of AI plays. Brad, I don't know if there's something you'd like to add to that.
Brad, are you on mute maybe?
Thank you, Veronica. Sorry about that. No, I was just wanted to add elements that you touched on that are going to be super important, which is security and data, making sure that your data maintains to be yours and that you're not sharing it inadvertently to the world because of exposing things that you shouldn't be, and making sure that your data is granting the best value for you, right? We've been in this challenge for the last 25, 30 years with data warehouses and trying to draw business intelligence from them. Now we're going to start to use that same data for AI. So, yeah, excellent answer, Sajid.
Next question here. So, why Google for AI compared to AWS or Azure? You want to take that one, Brad?
Sure. That's a question beyond right towards my own heart. So, why Google? Clearly, I've got a little bit of bias here based on the fact that I've been working with Google for the last 10 plus years. But Google has been one of the strong leaders in the AI world for as long as AI has been a topic, right? From the very beginning when it was predictive AI and so forth. And they have built a number of tools, including some of the top business intelligence tools that we think about, like BigQuery, but with BigQuery, a tool that can draw results from a business intelligence. It can also take that same information and train models in a machine learning environment and say, let's do some machine learning and me give it the algorithmic focus, or say, hey, I don't know what I want to get from this data. Let's do an auto ML, see what you can determine from this data. And that's already built into a database architecture that we can feed the output of our transactional data into this analytic data warehouse tool called BigQuery. Now I could take that and feed it into Vertex AI, another tool developed by Google, and even mix it with some of the pre-built Google tools that they've already come up with to produce that, what we want to call that transparent interface that we see, things like their pre-built contact center, their pre-built retail discovery tools, cloud talent solutions for human resources, even document readers, right? Things that they've already built and say, hey, here's some ready-built tools. And then if I wanted to take and say, oh, do me a favor, look at this folder that I have of 10,000 PDFs of all of the feedback and the product information and so on and so forth, and build your model around that. So Google has been a really strong proponent of AI from the very beginning. Nonetheless, companies like Microsoft and a great presentation that Satya Nadella did just a couple of weeks ago, talking about the future of AI, saying that traditional ERP, CRM types of software will be going away, and we're going to have these thin skins of the front ends, and he refers to a Excel as being a skin to the front end for an AI model rather than the kinds of tools that we see in ERPs. So Microsoft and Google are making leaps and jumps in the direction of AI. AWS, clearly, they're participating in it, but not as strong as both Microsoft and Google. So definitely a lot of tool sets coming from Google. Sajid, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think you hit it on its head. That's perfect.
Okay.
Great. All right, and then next one here. So what's NVIDIA's role in relation to the AI market? Any insights on that one? Let's go with Brett.
The quick and dirty answer is making a lot of money. NVIDIA, amazing power in the side of processor building for the creation of processing, modeling tools, and being able to produce the and we won't even call them GPUs anymore, but they're very specialized processors to be able to quickly, in a much faster processing time, produce a large language model out of content that we're going to continue to feed it. And I don't know exactly if you're aware of how the large language models are created, but I'm going to feed my environment these immense amounts of documents. And it might be a literary work, it might be a annual report from a company, it may be PDFs on product information, whatever it is. And what these tools do is they go through and vectorize the words coming out of the content that we see, and eventually turning all of those into numeric values. And the mathematics goes crazy, and the original content that was spoken about of how LLMs become a mathematical model is a lot of fun. And there's a couple of documents you might want to read. But NVIDIA is producing the processing power for building and creating a shorter lead times to market, of being able to build my own models out of the data that I'm drawing, because Google's got the millions and millions of processors that they're going to be using anyhow to feed their datas and update their datas every X number of months. But we're going to want to do it as well. So now we can use NVIDIA's tools that are inside a Google data center, a Microsoft data center, say, hey, let me use this and let me train my model, and make that much faster. Rather than being a 4-month process, it could be a 24-hour process. So NVIDIA is taking the lead on building the hardware to do that. There you go.
Great. Thank you for that. Next question here. So is quantum computing a hype or an actual technology next big thing?
Sajid, you want to take that one on?
Sure. Well, I think like so many emerging technologies, it certainly has a lot of hype and there's a lot of excitement around it. But I think in terms of what it can unlock, it's huge. So if we achieve what the promise is for quantum computing, then you're looking at, so we were just talking about NVIDIA and how it, its chips and its hardware platform and accelerators allow so much, so much acceleration or progress with the idea of quantum computing. I think it can really take that to the next level. So I think it's beyond hype. I just don't know if the timing, if people have real good clarity on what timing is going to look like quite yet.
I think that's a very fair statement. And what we're actually going to use it for, whether we're going to use it for developing better trained models, or we're going to use it for breaking security codes, depending on the hands it gets into. So security being a very, very dear topic to my heart.
All right, thank you both. So we're just about at time, so I'm going to wrap up the Q&A now. If you'd like to connect with any of us, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn through the speaker bios on your dashboard. If you want to, dive into this topic further, talk about these trends, some of these solutions we talked about today, you can schedule a meeting with us at the end of the webinar. Well, thank you again for joining today. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.